Hello and welcome back to Matt Hayes' Tottenham Blog and to this evening's Tottenham transfer roundup on the 15th of July, where we have updates on so many players including Tammy Abraham, Lorenzo Pellegrini, some good news on the Maxence Lacroix front, Takehiro Tomiyasu, Jules Koundé, and some more players that Spurs are apparently interested in, plus a lot of news on potential outgoings including Eric Lamela, Toby Alderweireld and Harry Kane, which the story that will go on for the rest of the transfer window. Before we do dive into all of that, if you are new to the channel and you want more videos like this throughout the transfer window, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below and hit a like in the stream if you are looking forward to it. And let's dive straight into things with the news that we got today on Tammy Abraham. And Matt Law of the Daily Telegraph, someone who I would personally see as a very reliable Chelsea transfer source, has said that Chelsea have actually offered Tammy Abraham to Tottenham. Now, other reports suggest there is around a £40 million asking price for Chelsea. But what I can say straight up with this deal is I don't want it to happen. I do not want Spurs to sign Tammy Abraham. He is not a good enough option, whether it's as a replacement for Harry Kane or as a player to partner Harry Kane. It's not good enough, and it's not something that Tottenham should pursue. He's had one decent season in the Premier League with Chelsea. We take a quick look at those stats, because in the 2019-20 season, the season where they were at their best under Frank Lampard, he scored 15 goals across 34 games, which is a very decent return for a player who doesn't really have Premier League experience, who did well in the Championship when he was on loan at Swansea and Aston Villa, came into the Premier League and I think was a better player than people had really expected of him. But he regressed massively last season, partly due to the incoming of Timo Werner, who was mainly seen as their number one striker, and he only scored 6 goals in 22 appearances. Some of the chat there, Oscar saying apparently he's missed 22 big chances. Last season he missed 4 big chances, and the season before that, I actually didn't. 22 big chances missed in the season that was apparently his best season. So not the best stats there for Tammy Abraham. For £40 million, Chelsea can absolutely do one. There's no way Spurs are going to pay that amount for many players, especially not Tammy Abraham. And if they did, well, I'd question Daniel Levy a lot more than I have in the past. We had to touch on that one because it is coming from a reliable source in Matt Law that Chelsea have offered Tammy Abraham to Spurs. It's not going to happen. I don't want it to happen. And I would imagine a lot of the thoughts in the live chat are the same. Let's welcome a few people in. We got so many the regulars. We got Hoiberg the General, Oscar Bell, Lost Galaxy, Chris Agambar. We got Ganesh, Simon Cohen as well. Good to see you. Gary asking for news on Skriniar, which we will get to very, very shortly. Steve Westhead, good to see you. And a man, Dara, saying it's getting worrying now. No one sold or brought in. We are really slipping up. Transfer window open over 30 days. We'll have updates on Skriniar and Tomiyasu very shortly. But I want to talk first of all about Maxence Lacroix. And we got some good news in that front today. First of all, Charlie Eccleshare of The Athletic has said that Tottenham's interest or talks for Maxence Lacroix are not believed to be at an advanced stage. And we pretty much knew that, to be honest. We knew there was an interest there from Tottenham, as per the news we got last week from Fabrizio Romano and Gianluca Di Marzio, that Tottenham are interested in the player. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to try and make a move, or we're even considering making a move, because of the way Fabio Paratici is going about his transfer business this summer, where he's going to negotiate for 9, 10, 11 targets before actually picking a player that we are going to bring in. Tony Young, evening to you as well. Thanks for popping in. So we know it's not at an advanced stage. I assume that Spurs are still to some extent trying to work on the Jules Koundé deal. It's not going to happen from what we're hearing at the moment, but Maxence Lacroix, definitely a very good backup option. As Lost Galaxy says there in the live chat, there's been an update from Bild today, and RB Leipzig were in advanced negotiations to sign Maxence Lacroix from Wolfsburg. However, they have now pulled out of those negotiations and are no longer interested in signing the France under-21 international, and that leaves Tottenham at the front of the queue, coming from Bild, a German source. So if this is the deal that Tottenham do want to pursue, which I personally hope it is, that is some very good news for us, because a lot of the time if you're looking at Spanish players going to maybe Spain or to Real Madrid or Barcelona, in Germany going to the likes of Dortmund, Bayern Munich or RB Leipzig, that was a massive... there was a massive chance of that happening within this Lacroix situation, but Leipzig have now pulled out of those negotiations. Henry Allen says Lacroix, definitely one player I want, and I certainly agree with you. I'd love to see that happen. Anyone, if you haven't yet seen my analysis of Maxence Lacroix, telling you exactly what he would bring to Tottenham, exactly why he's a player that we should be signing, go back through my Tottenham Hotspur Transfer Talk series, and there's all the information you need to know there on the player and why he is such a very, very good option for us. It's not all good news. I mean, he does have a lot of weaknesses, including defending in wide areas and possession in wide areas as well, but He's just a very talented defender. A line from breakingthelines.com and their analysis of him that I always like to bring is Lacroix has a clear defensive style, being the aggressor in the Wolfsburg backline, as he will often step out of the defensive line and look to try and intercept the ball when opposition midfielders are progressing or the forwards are dropping between the lines. He is aggressive and attempts to stop the attack at the source most of the time. So that's a general, brief, tiny overview of who he is as a player. But if you want more information than that, it is available on my channel right now if you do want to go and check that out. Or even better yet, wait till the end of this stream. Lorenzo Pellegrini is another player that has been mentioned today, and we have spoken about him quite a bit on the channel in the past, especially in that kind of 7-day period where we expected Paulo Fonseca to be the new head coach of Spurs. He's of course playing with Roma, and the Athletic UK have today come out and said that AS Roma midfielder Lorenzo Pellegrini has emerged as an option for Spurs this summer window. He's a central attacking midfielder that I am a massive fan of. Didn't really see much of him throughout the season or in terms of watching Roma, but by looking into Fonseca's tactics at Roma and looking into the way they played last season, he was a massive part of what they did, and he's an incredibly talented player. You can see the player profiles beside me. There is one there for Pellegrini to get a quick look at what he's good at. Cody Mack, good to see him in the live chat, says if we were bidding more for Koundé than Lacroix would cost, we should stump up the cash immediately. We'll be picking from bones if we wait as per usual. Absolutely agree, Cody, as always. Christopher says only Tomiyasu and Anderson we will be getting. We'll get back onto centre-backs in a second with Tomiyasu and Koundé. But Lorenzo Pellegrini in the Serie A last season had a very good season. He made... where are my numbers gone? He's made 34 appearances, scoring 7 goals and registering 6 assists. So he does like to play a big part in scoring the goals and also creating them himself. And he's a bit versatile. He's not the most versatile player in the world. He played 23 games in a central attacking midfield position, played 16 in a deeper lying centre midfield position, and played 2 as a left forward across all competitions. And he's, as you can see beside me, he has a lot of strengths. He's really, really good passing ability, as the 6 assists would suggest. Who Scored identify his huge strengths as through balls and key passes, as well as taking set pieces, which is really something that Tottenham need. We have been crying out for a set piece specialist since Christian Eriksen left. Even before that, because for the last 2 years he was at the club, he wasn't exactly the set piece player that we've known him to be. So he could be a very, very good addition to our side. Pellegrini also strong with taking long shots, which is kind of crazy to put together with the fact that his finishing isn't great. But if he's hitting them from range, you can have high expectations of that. He's also good at intercepting the ball when he does sit back into those deeper lying midfield positions, which will be a very, very welcomed addition to our midfield. If I was looking at the midfielders we've been linked with so far in Houssem Aouar, Renato Sanchez, Miguel Damsgaard as well from Sampdoria, of all the ones that we've seen, in terms of what's most realistic and what I would like the most, Lorenzo Pellegrini is top of my list, even including Marcel Sabitzer, because I don't think that one will happen, as Jack Luca is asking there. There's no concrete news on that. My personal feeling is he will choose a team better than Tottenham this summer, as I do expect him to leave Leipzig. Pellegrini's top of my list. He's such a talented player, was again such a key part of that Roma side last season, who did play a 3 at the back with a bit of a reliance on their midfield in terms of winning the ball back and being the creative spark within there. Kind of those players come and narrow a lot to create space for those fullbacks in who were Spinazzola and Karsdorp. It'll be hopefully Reguilon and a new right back at Spurs this season, but he's so impressive within a system that is very similar to the one that we are expecting to implement at Tottenham this season, and his own technical ability is second to none within that Roma team, and I would absolutely adore him in a Tottenham jersey, and I really hope this is one that Spurs do push for. I think in terms of moves for midfielders, it will be a week or two before we start to see any sort of a progression on that, and I would imagine we would bring in some centre-backs before we do start looking for to finalise deals for midfielders. But if it was down to me, Pellegrini would be right up at the top of that list. Mark Woodland, good to see you. Thanks for tuning in today. Says, hi Matt, Ings is the one I want, but I'd take Tammy, to be honest. Lacroix will be a quality addition, but to be honest, I'm so wary of all these links. There's so many. And Mark, I agree with you on that, and I'm going to touch on later in the stream kind of how to kind of filter through the links and which ones are the most reliable and kind of what to look out for within those. But I would mention as well that we've been told by Romano and Alistair Gold that Paratici is going to negotiate for a lot of players before deciding which ones he wants. So a lot more rumours than usual this season are going to be accurate, but that doesn't necessarily mean we are going to sign those players. Dara says, it would make more sense going for Lacroix. It just feels like a waste of time going for Koundé or Skriniar. These players will not want to play in the Euro Conference League, and I couldn't agree more with you there. Mark also says, We need to go after young, hungry players who want to join us, not the superstars who keep turning us down, which is spot on, and it's a damning indictment of where Spurs are after being in the Champions League final 2 years ago. Tony Young asking about keepers. We will have an update on Sam Johnston before the stream ends, so stay tuned for that one. But that is it on Pellegrini, a player that I really like, but at the moment it is just interest from Spurs for him that is coming from the Athletic UK. To jump back onto centre backs, we have updates on Milan Skriniar, Jules Koundé, and Takahiro Tomiyasu. For Skriniar, Charlie Eccleshare has said that Skriniar is an alternative target to Jules Koundé. There's a willingness on the Tottenham side to get a deal done. Inter Milan's badly hit finances could make a deal more likely this summer. So as we pursued this deal last summer, the main issue was Inter Milan holding out for their £60 million valuation of him, which Tottenham tried to meet in terms of making a £50 million bid with 10 million in add-ons. But Inter Milan wanted that all up front. Tottenham could not make that deal happen. However, with their financial situation this summer, what I would kind of change within that Charlie Eccleshare report is that I think it is more likely that Skriniar will leave Inter Milan, but I think it's way less likely that he'll join Tottenham simply because of how we've regressed as a club in the last 12 months. So I think, as was mentioned there in the live chat, we need to forget about Skriniar, probably forget about Koundé as well, and move for the likes of Lacroix, who will count his blessings for being a Spurs player, rather than these bigger superstars who will simply be settling for Tottenham if they do end up at our club. The updates today on Jules Koundé. The Athletic UK, who seems to be behind 90% of these reports that we're seeing, have said Jules Koundé is one of Tottenham's top summer targets. Sevilla are open to selling the player, but he wants Champions League football. It's what we know. Sevilla will sell. Some reports saying we've agreed to deal, some saying a lot to the contrary, but it doesn't matter because Koundé wants Champions League football. And that kind of ties into the next report from ABC Sevilla, who have said that Sevilla are not going to respond to Tottenham's attempts to sign Jules Koundé, as they don't think it's worth it. They'll know exactly what the player wants, and they seem resigned to the fact that he doesn't want Tottenham. Where Jules Koundé could potentially end up, I've been talking a bit about my personal opinion that if Rafael Varane goes to Manchester United, that Koundé will end up going to Real Madrid. However, Fabrizio Romano has said that if Man United's move for Varane falls through, then they themselves could end up going for Jules Koundé. So essentially, no matter what happens with this Varane deal, we probably are going to be pipped to Jules Koundé by a better team. That's even if there is any slight possibility of us getting him, which I don't think we will. So Koundé probably out of the question. Takahiro Tomiyasu, I see a lot of people asking there. The Athletic UK have said today that Tomiyasu is the closest transfer to completion for Tottenham, with both clubs finalising a deal that is believed to be worth around £15 million plus add-ons. This is a deal that, again, I expect to be done in the next 7 to 10 days. It's just looks like we're going through the normal parts of the deal in terms of the medical, the contract, finalising all the finer details within all of that. But the Olympics are starting in 8 days' time on the 23rd of July, and a deal is expected to be done for this before the Olympics begin. So maybe in the next 7 days we could see Tomiyasu announced and confirmed as a Tottenham player. Fabrizio Romano says it is a bit more complicated than that. He says Tomiyasu to Tottenham is not a done deal, so maybe there's a bit more work to do on that than we're being told from the English side of things. But again, personally, I do expect this one to be finalised very, very shortly. Some more talk today on Houssem Aouar as the midfield links continue to filter through. Alexis Bernard from Ladies Sport has said Arsenal and Tottenham are battling it out for the signature of Houssem Aouar. The Gunners are currently offering a bid of less than €20 million, while Lyon want around €25 million. Tottenham, on the other side, could offer that. So Arsenal at the moment, according to Alexis Bernard, are in negotiations for Lyon. They're not meeting the asking price, but Tottenham are not to be ruled out of this one, as they could come in with that asking price that Lyon are looking for. What I would say, on a personal point of view, is Houssem Aouar probably won't want Tottenham. The same as Koundé, the same as Skriniar. I think if it does come down to it, the player might have some better options and might choose not to join Spurs, but definitely one to keep an eye on, as Arsenal seem to be falling short of their asking price. Mark says, Matt, I've seen Bolly from Wolves mention today a double deal for him and Podence. That wouldn't surprise me, to be honest. Cycling through all these quality players only to get some in from Wolves. I wouldn't be dismissing Wolves players immediately. There are some very talented players in that team, but I will talk about those Wolves links a little later in the stream as well. Danny Ings, the other striker that we are being linked to, on top of Tammy Abraham, the Athletic UK are today saying that Southampton want more than £25 million for Danny Ings, as Spurs make the striker one of their top targets. It's a lot of money for a player who is certainly coming towards the end of his prime in the Premier League, but Look, if he's our number one target, and if he's the player that Nuno has specifically identified as the man he wants to partner Harry Kane up top next season, maybe it's one that Spurs just need to get done. I personally don't think we'll see this happen this summer, especially if it is £25 million, but certainly one to keep an eye on, as many reports suggest that he is Tottenham's number one striker target. Importantly, to partner Harry Kane rather than to replace him. We were asked a while ago about the goalkeeper situation, and David Ornstein of The Athletic has said that West Brom goalkeeper Sam Johnston is on Tottenham's radar. We're not the only London club who are looking for him, as West Ham have had a bid turned down for Johnston in the last 24 hours. Sky Sports are saying it was around £6 million. I've seen other reports suggest it is as high as 10. There's 1 year left on Johnston's contract, so West Ham are not expected to go back in with a higher bid. Tottenham potentially could come in there. Whether it's going to be this summer or next summer that we do make a move for that, I'm not quite sure, because he is seen as a replacement for Hugo Lloris, which could potentially need to wait until 2022. But that is essentially it on the reliable sources talking about players that we could potentially be bringing in. And now we move on to players that could be leaving, because there are just so many reports in the last day or so. And the main one to start on is, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Mr. Harry Kane. And the Athletic UK have said that Tottenham Hotspur are expecting further interest from Manchester City for Harry Kane this summer, but maintain that the player is not for sale. The Premier League champions are expected to make an offer of more than £100 million, but not near the £150 million price tag that Spurs are demanding. And again, it's just kind of reiteration and confirmation of what we've known for a week or two now, that City are probably going to come back in with a new bid after their initial bid of £100 million, plus the choice of certain players was turned down by Tottenham. Tottenham, as I understand it, want £150 million plus a player, which is a crazy fee. And I do think it's not a case of us wanting them to pay that. It's us wanting to deter them from even entering negotiations, which I felt we had done with the way they immediately made that £100 million bid for Jack Grealish. But it looks like they will come back in with a higher bid, but not enough to convince Tottenham to let the player go. So for me, it's in the same situation there. City want Kane, Kane want City, but it's just not going to happen with 3 years left on his contract. Harry Winks, another story from The Athletic. This one, I'm not too sure how to feel about this, because I don't know how they could get this sort of information, and especially why it will be leaked within Spurs. But they said that Harry Winks will find out what his role will be at Spurs under Nuno Espirito Santo in the next week or so. That kind of adds to the stories we've had over the last month or two, in which we heard that Tottenham are open to listening to offers for Harry Winks, whereas the player himself wants to stay at the club to try and fight for his place within the team. I personally think there's no place in this team for Harry Winks, especially if we're going to change to two in the middle of the park rather than the three that we have with a double pivot and the number 10. I think we've seen Harry Winks' last performance in a Spurs jersey, which isn't the worst thing in the world. On Eric Lamela, Sport Italia have said the Fiorentina are ready to pounce on Tottenham Hotspur playmaker Eric Lamela, as he's become their latest idea for this summer. And Gianluigi Glangari of Sport Italia, with this story, have also said that they're really keen on signing the Argentinian and Tottenham forward. I do expect Lamela to move on this summer as well. We're going to talk in a second about the exodus of players that we could be seeing from the club. But Lamela, 8 years at Tottenham, hasn't even scored the 20 goals that would trigger a clause in his the initial deal that would make us pay Roma a higher fee. I'm a fan of him. I love him. I wanted it to work out, and I'd be happy if it did still, but I don't see it happening. And I think Tottenham need to just cut their losses and move on Eric Lamela. Other players that could leave, Charlie Eccleshare has said that Serge Aurier, Davinson Sanchez, Moussa Sissoko, Toby Alderweireld, Cameron Carter-Vickers and Eric Lamela have all been made available for transfer this summer. The club would also consider offers for Lucas Moura, while Hugo Lloris will discuss his future at the club when he returns from holiday. So maybe the case of Hugo Lloris and Sam Johnston could be decided once Hugo Lloris makes a final decision on what he wants to do with his career. I think regardless of what happens this summer, he will be gone at the end of next summer, because I don't think he'll be signing a new contract. The Sun have also said that Tottenham could sell up to 10 players this summer, including Toby Alderweireld and Eric Lamela, in a huge transfer clear-out. Some updates on some younger players, some fringe players that could be moving on. Jack Clarke, possibly one who is staying, as the Athletic UK have said that despite having interest from clubs in England and abroad, the winger wants to stay at Tottenham and fight for a chance in the team. Now that interest is coming from, thank you very much to David and Jay for subscribing. I do appreciate it. Anyone else, if you do want more of this, please hit that subscribe button down below as we look to get to 10k before the season starts. The interest in Jack Clarke is coming from Nottingham Forest, as per Charlie Eccleshare, and Alistair Gold has said that there's 2 championship teams and 1 team in Belgium that are interested in taking Clarke on loan. I would assume it's Nottingham Forest plus 1 from Alistair Gold. There's no mention of who the team in Belgium is, but there is interest there for Jack Clarke, but he wants to stay at Spurs and fight for his place in the team. Cameron Carter-Vickers, Newcastle are interested in Tottenham's Carter-Vickers. He was recommended by first team coach Graham Jones. Again, another story from the Athletic UK. Carter-Vickers has been on loan in the last couple of seasons and just hasn't really made it into the first team at Spurs, as we did expect from him in the past. And maybe it is best there to cut our losses as well. Eliot Thorpe, a very exciting prospect within our academy, not really been given any first team chances, and he may not be getting one because freelance journalist Peter O'Rourke has said that Tottenham youth midfielder Eliot Thorpe is set to join Bundesliga side Hoffenheim after undergoing a medical. And I wouldn't class Peter O'Rourke as a reliable source through any stretch of the word, because I simply don't know who he is. But for me, that just seems like such a far-fetched story if it is made up, that just because of the finer details in it going to Hoffenheim, it just seems too bizarre not to be true. So I do think there is an element of truth to that one. Before I take your questions and stuff in the live chat, I just want to bring you up to date with 5 other stories that have come out, ones that aren't from particularly reliable sources. Calcio Mercato have reiterated their story that Tottenham are interested in signing Atalanta goalkeeper Pierre Luigi Gallini, with his current club valuing him at €20 million. Gazzetta dello Sport have said that Tottenham have made a, quote, important offer of over €40 million for Fiorentina striker Dusan Vlahovic. However, the Serie A club have kindly shut the door on talks as they demand €60 million. Tuttosport are saying that Tottenham are interested in Juventus defender Merih Demiral, but his current club would only consider an offer of at least €35 million for the 23-year-old centre-back. Estadio Deportivo, Tottenham have not held talks with Sevilla regarding Jules Koundé. All reports in Italy regarding a deal was a lie. And other reports, as were mentioned a while ago, Tottenham are now out of the race for Jules Koundé. There's a new target for the club from Wolves. The same source came out with the line that Tottenham are preparing to offer £45 million or million euro for Willy Bolly and Daniel Podence of Wolves. So many stories to get through there. I apologise if that was kind of overloaded with information. I sat down here at 7 o'clock to try and get my notes done, and I was here right until 8 o'clock because there's a whole lot more than I was expecting coming out in the last day or so. It's to be expected. It's the way our summer window is going to go, is what we're going to have to put up with. Even some news stories coming out while we're live, and Dean Jones Soccer has said that Tottenham are interested in Norwich winger Todd Cantwell, but we'll nothing much to that one. I would assume he's from the Football Terrace, so I doubt there's anything overly reliable on that. But we'll keep an eye on that one for sure. Let's take a look at the live chat and see if there's any questions here. Aaron Fernandez saying, if Fiorentina want Lamela, throw some cash in too for Vlahovic, easy. Well, Aaron, maybe you need to take Fabio Paratisi's job, because I'd certainly do the exact same. Ken Boone says, is there any news on Aaron Ramsdale? Nothing that I've seen. I know there were kind of unreliable links earlier in the summer, but nothing that we should particularly take note of. James Watson says, what happened to Sabitzer? Swear he has 1 year left, and we've been heavily linked since January. He does. There's only 1 year left on Sabitzer's contract with RB Leipzig, but everything seems to have gone quiet in that front. But I do still expect him to leave Leipzig. Whether or not he's going to end up at Tottenham, I wouldn't be too sure. I think it will be a different destination for him this summer, which is disappointing because it looked as though it was one that we could have got done last summer, and it kind of seemed as though it's something the player would have wanted as well. But unsurprisingly, Spurs have delayed that one a bit too much. We're penny pinching and ended up losing out on the player. Stuart says, don't you think our timing as a club is terrible, as we've put a lot of our players up for sale when most clubs have been hit hard over the pandemic? And that's a big concern for us, Stuart. And it's also the fact that all of our players are probably at the lowest they've been in their career. Like, you look at Eric Dyer, if we want to sell him, who's going to make a bid for Eric Dyer? I mean, realistically, all jokes aside, who was going to want to buy Eric Dyer after the season he had last year? There are a lot of worrying things about this transfer window, because we do need to buy to sell, or sell to buy. Oscar Bell says, do you still believe that Spurs and Sevilla accepted that bid for Koundé? Not as much as I did when the news initially came out, but Demarcio was a reliable source. So I think I'd be foolish if I sat here and said, I don't think it's going to happen. Mark Wooden says, Matt, do you think Levy is bidding for players he knows we can't get? He has a history of this. And there is a feeling of that with regards to the Koundé deal, because Romano has been saying for about 2 weeks now that Spurs are in contact with Jules Koundé's agents. We go ahead, we agree a deal, and then immediately, all of a sudden, Spurs find out that Koundé doesn't want to join us. I think we would have to take a look at that and kind of question what's going on there, but there is definitely a possibility of that happening, Mark, and it really wouldn't surprise me. Pete8787 says, any news on Son contract? We're still the same, just waiting for the official announcement, waiting for him to put pen to paper there. I think it is a done deal, and I'd be very surprised if Son doesn't sign that contract or doesn't stay at Spurs. No concrete news, but I do think it will go ahead. Henry Allen says, Matt, what is your ideal transfer window, specifically which player for each position? Ideally, getting rid of as much deadwood as we possibly can. I'd bring in 2 centre-backs in Lacroix and Tomiyasu, who can also play on the right-hand side. In the midfield, Houssam Aouar and Lorenzo Pellegrini, and then maybe a striker as well, whether that's Ings or Vlahovic. Probably Ings would be the best one. I personally wouldn't want him, but if it's what Nuno and Paratici are looking at, I think that is probably where we go there. So, ideal 5 signings, Lacroix. Ideal and realistic, I'll mention Lacroix, Tomiyasu, Aouar, Pellegrini, and Danny Ings. Jared says, I'd pay money to sell Eric Dyer. We'll go back to the chat and see what else is there. Ben says, who was the mystery player that we supposedly signed with Nuno's acceptance? Could be Tomiyasu, but I'm starting to think that story was a complete waste of time. James Watson says Lamela can definitely go. Alexander, welcome to the stream. Spurs Savage as well. Good to see you in the live chat. Alex Sabanda says Lacroix is young and willing. Get him. Let's see what we have here. Antonio Linares says, any news of Nicolas Gonzalez at least? And if I'm not mistaken, Nicolas Gonzalez has already left Stuttgart and joined Fiorentina. Yeah, so when the story initially came out, Tottenham were the preferred destination for Nicolas Gonzalez. Fiorentina were in talks and had made a bid, but Brighton and Spurs were given the option to match that bid, and Spurs is who Nicolas Gonzalez wanted. And then within all the negotiations of that, Spurs decided to let go of Paulo Fonseca and move for Gennaro Gattuso, who that morning had left Fiorentina. And ironically, ridiculously, Fiorentina then went out and got Nicolas Gonzalez. So there's no chance, 0% chance of Gonzalez to Spurs. He's already transferred this window. He's gone from Stuttgart to Fiorentina. Chris says, maybe we should actually listen to Levy for the first time ever and only believe any signings have happened once they happen, because at the moment it's a lot of paper and journalist talk, no actual signings. And that is very true. There's 99% of the rumours you read, 99% of the stories you see are paper talk, and it's not true, and stuff that you need to just immediately dismiss as people looking for clicks. However, that isn't to say that every single journalist needs to be ignored. And it's not to say that every single journalist is completely unreliable. There are journalists that you need to or that should be listened to a lot of the time, because the majority of what they say is realistic. And I think something that really dilutes people's trust in transfer rumors is taking every single story as the same. So for example, if you see 2 stories, one saying Fabrizio Romano saying we've agreed a deal with this player, and a second one is this in the know on Twitter saying, well, we have interest in this player. Those are 2 very, very different stories, and I feel like a lot of people take those at face value at the same, whereas one is a reliable source saying a deal is nearly done, and one is an unreliable source saying, well, we're nowhere near a deal being done, but there is interest there. So you need to kind of decipher and pick between which ones are we actually really need to take notice of, because I think people lose faith because they misunderstand or overvalue certain rumours. And look, we know we'll be interested in and linked to dozens of players throughout this window. Odds are a lot of them will be true, as I said earlier, because the way Paratici goes about his business. And it's going to be a long roller coaster. But I personally feel like immediately dismissing and disregarding every single rumour is only really affecting, a fan's own optimism within the club, because the transfer window is a magical time. And I know not a lot of people agree with that, but I absolutely adore the transfer window. And I love these rumours. I love the links. I love the excitement of deal agreed, personal terms agreed, medical happening, and then the player being announced. Honestly, if we signed Takahiro Tomiyasu or if we signed a player from Oxford Town, I would be excited about the deal regardless. I really do love the transfer window, and I feel sad when people kind of lose faith in all these journalists and all these stories and disregard it immediately. But from what we've heard reliably this window, we've only really tried to sign 2 players. One is almost a done deal in Takahiro Tomiyasu, and the other we made good strides with in getting a deal agreed for Jules Koundé. And it may not happen at the moment, it probably won't, but that is for something that in this particular moment of time is completely out of our hands. As Tony says, I love the window, and look, I do too. I kind of have to say my bit there, because I think people are only really affecting their own optimism and love of football and the club when they completely disregard every single rumour. It's about picking which ones are most reliable, and that is what we do on this channel. all those stories we went through at the start are from people who in the past have proven themselves as reliable sources. The little bits that I added at the end are just to bring you up to date with all the reports, but ones that I don't personally believe or don't even personally take as serious at all. So if you do struggle to pick through the realistic reports, the reliable sources and all that, this is probably the best channel for you, because that is exactly what I do, and that is exactly why kind of what I try to bring. It's a bit of value and a bit of context, and just something more to all these reports, and giving you analysis of these players that we're looking at, and basically kind of, I don't want to say making up the mind of, but giving more information to people that perhaps don't have the time to get that information themselves. So if you do want that, if you are interested in more of that throughout the window, please do hit that subscribe button down below. Because like I said, we're on the road to 10,000 subscribers before the season starts, and that's a crazy number to me. It really is one that I never thought we'd hit on the channel, but we're getting so close now. With Paul subscribing a few minutes ago and RVJ subscribing now as well. Thank you very much for that. We're just below 500 off 10,000, which is utterly bizarre. We will have Fabrizio Romano back on the channel next week to get his insight on so many different stories, including Kunde, including Tomiyasu, and any link that may come up between now and then. So please hit the subscribe button if you want that as well. If you have enjoyed this stream, if you've learned something, if you've enjoyed the links, if you're looking forward to any signings coming in, please do hit that like button. We're on 82 with 370 people watching, so please hit that like button and see if we can get that up to 125 as quickly as possible. Aaron Fernandez says best channel overall. I appreciate that, Aaron. Thank you very much. And James says willing to learn. And look, hopefully you do learn something where you're in this channel. Dara says top job, Matt. I do love the transfer updates. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in. We've had about 1,300 people throughout the last 30 minutes, so I do appreciate the support. I appreciate everyone who's hit that like button, our new subscribers, and as always our channel members who are tuning in. But we are going to wrap it up there. I'm sure we'll be back with some stories in the next day or two as Tottenham's window continues to give us way too many stories to talk about. But like I said, this is the place where you'd hear about the most reliable ones first. So please do hit that subscribe button, hit that like button on your way out, and as always, thanks for watching. I did it again where I forgot to turn off the camera. Here we go. Bye.